guys, welcome back again from Daytona Beach. Today I've got a review of the 2018 Star Eluder. This is a bike I want to love. Now, I've done the Star Venture with very mixed results. Love the styling. Handling's good. Love the features. Engine, not so much. I'm going to give this every benefit of the doubt. I'm only going to ride it in sport mode, and we're going to see what happens. Oh, this is a heavy bike. Holy moly. Just does not want to roll at all. I'll tell you, compared to the Goldwing, this thing feels like a brick. Just rolling it here in the parking lot, back and forth. It's heavy. And we're off. All right. Comfort-wise, it's a couch, like many full-on cruisers are. Seat is definitely not as squishy, as really supportive as other touring bikes, especially the Goldwing series. It's on the narrow side, and it feels thin. I feel the pan, but it's comfy. I don't know if it's going to be an all-day comfort ride, because I feel my butt, even just sitting on it here. It's a noticeable difference. Now, this bike is really aimed at single-up riders. If you're all about the passenger, then you're going to be looking at the Star Venture series, because that is the primary difference between the two. We've got this huge sweepy beach bars here, way back from the steering nut. And what that gives you is when you're turning, there is no heel shifter. It's got boards, and it's got a setup like a heel and toe. There's no heel. Kind of threw me off there. I keep forgetting they do that. If you've got boards, I think you should always have heel and toe. Otherwise, don't use boards. Not a real fan of the boards myself. I'd rather have just a nice, big, comfy foot peg, like the Goldwing does. But I guess once you get used to it, it's fine. Boards themselves are adequate. They're actually a little narrow. At the back here, my foot is hanging off the edge, so I don't have full support of my heel just resting on there. Not real fan of this particular setup. Shifter itself actually feels a little old school. It's clunky. It is not a snick shift like modern bikes. Very much like an older style cruiser, like the older Stars. Yeah, it's pretty much like they just pulled over their transmission. That's how it feels. But it's actually shifting fine. This guy's just totally cut in the middle of the group. Exhaust note is actually pretty darn nice. For a modern bike, it's not bad. It's of course quiet, like everything is. Can't get around emissions laws, but the tone is nice. It's just not loud, but it sounds good. No complaints there. Tons of torque right off idle here. Once we get onto the main stretch here, I'll be able to open it up. So what do you give up compared to the Venture line? Well, like I said, it's mostly about the passenger. You give up side vents, because you don't really need to be throwing the wind more than around you, and there is full protection here on the bike. You give up the super comfy back seat. You have a basic pillion seat on this. Clutch pull is on the firm side. My hand's already getting tired just sitting here. Way firmer than other bikes, even in Yamaha's own line. Like the FJR right in front of me there. FJR is half the clutch pull of this. Low speed handling is very good. Right up until you get to about a mile an hour. Completely handles its weight, no problem. But here, it's very tippy. You feel the weight. Definitely not a super low center of gravity bike, like the Goldwing is. Not as tippy as the FJR, but it's in between. I was hoping the lack of trunk would affect that, but I really don't feel any difference between this and the Venture as far as that goes. Tips right into turns though. That feels very good. We do not have self-canceling signals. So other things you give up are the windscreen. This one is just basically, well, for looks. It's a half height compared to even the down position on the Venture, and it's not adjustable. You've got a nice electric screen. Gives you several inches of up and down adjustment on the touring model, not in this. You, of course, give up the huge rear trunk. All you have are the saddlebags on this, which are definitely generous, but you are halving your storage capacity. And you're giving up half your stereo because you no longer have any rear speakers. Now that isn't as bad as it sounds, because most of the sound here is coming from the front when you're riding. I think the rear speakers are pretty much only for the passenger, and it sounds really good. I obviously am not going to demo it here on the ride. You can do that in person. It's not going to do any justice coming through a GoPro, but very loud, right up there on par with any of the Indians, Harleys, or Goldwing stereo systems, at least the stock ones. Harley does have the upgrade available for several $100s, and that is significantly louder, but that is, like I said, a very expensive upgrade. I don't think there is any upgrade available for this from Yamaha, so it is what it is. But it's completely adequate. Most people are not going to want to do anything with it. The screen is very nice, high resolution, completely modern, and at least for iPhone, it has very good connectivity. I have some people commented that the Android is very lacking or basic. I don't know about that. I use an iPhone. It's a touch screen, and the only fault I have with this setup is it is really far away. I'm 6'2", 32-inch inseam, 250 pounds, and I can't reach a screen. I'm about 6 inches short here. So it's at a stop only, or you have to really lean forward. But it is very visible. The gauges are excellent. They're, of course, mostly analog. You've got a big speedometer on the left, very car-like. Huge tachometer on the right with big, clear numbers. I like that. Big fuel gauge down in the center there of the tachometer. And you've got a tiny little basic LCD trip computer function in the left. And that is barely visible. All I can really see is the gear selector. And looks like an odometer. That's really hard to read. Completely out of place with the rest of the dash. So up in the top gear here, we're at about 1,750 RPMs at 45 miles an hour, just cruising down the road. You definitely feel the thump of the engine, and that's about it. Completely vibration-free bike, very comfy just to sit here and cruise. That's what it's designed to do. Should be able to get on the gas here for the first time on this stretch, hopefully. Come on, guys. These bikes are made to run. Very short gearing, very low RPMs. Come on, dude, go, 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 go. We're only doing 35. This is ridiculous. Decent power. All right, there definitely wasn't anything wrong with my review of the Venture. The bike just doesn't have a whole heck of a lot of power. Every bike in Yamaha's lineup, including the MT-07, is going to leave this in the dust. Period. Now, maybe if you load it down with luggage and load it down with a passenger, that would certainly change, because this has a ton of torque, and it's not going to get any slower. That's the advantage of these huge engines. But just straight up performance numbers, this is not going to be a speed demon. Certainly far slower than the Goldwings, far slower than the BMW 1600s. I mean, it's not even in the same league performance-wise. But just lugging it down into top gear here, you don't really give up any performance. It's got the same acceleration if you're in second or sixth. That just goes. Grips are huge, big, chunky cruiser diameter. Very comfy. It's got a squishy rubber feel to it. Turn signals are large, right in front of you there. Nice big switch gear. The switches themselves are very high quality. Everything feels really integrated. Easy to see, easy to touch. Everything's in the right place. Horn is right there by your thumb. Don't have to think about anything. Turn-in's great. You don't feel the road. That's one thing that I do like about smaller bikes for sure. This one is just gliding over every little road imperfection. I want to see how much brake dive it has here when we come up to the next light. I haven't detected any, at least noticeable. All you really feel is the bike shaking from the engine if you get on it. I'm at idle. I mean, this thing's just idling down the road. It's got that much power and torque. So you're just barely cracking the throttle to maintain speed. So it's a very different ride from those of you looking for any kind of performance-oriented ride. Even from other cruisers, even from, say, a Harley, you're using the throttle a lot more on a Harley or an Indian. I can't stress enough how much this thing is meant to just use the low band of the RPMs. That's what it's designed to do. This is a freeway cruiser. It's made for covering long distances in comfort. And I will say that's definitely what it does. Sitting position here is extremely comfortable. It's forward controls, so my feet are forward of my knees. Knees themselves are straight out from my hips. Maybe a slight upward cant. There's a little bit of a catcher's mitt feel to the seat itself. It's not a bench. It's contoured, so it's actually narrower in the back. My cheeks are hanging off a little bit, and that's what I'm feeling. So I know if I feel it now, that would be a problem in the long term. I feel the seam of the seat on the side of my cheeks. So I would like that to be a much wider seat. I would imagine that there's going to be an aftermarket option that's going to be pretty popular for this. Mirrors are extremely large and clear. They appear to be the same as the FJR. No, slightly different, but 90% the same. Just a slight difference in the outside shape. Same size, absolutely rock solid, perfect position. I see, a little bit of my fingers, and that's about it. Other than that, you see everything behind you. Clutch engagement is super slick and smooth. You just have to slightly release the clutch lever and it pulls out. That's all there is to it. Big lurch when you go. That was it. That was full throttle. You do have to shift very quickly. It's not that you're short shifting. It's not running out of power. It's just an extremely low revving engine. Redline's only at 4,700, and it revs up there very quickly in first and second gear. So it's a couple seconds of acceleration, and then you have to shift. You could almost just start this in second gear, and I would bet performance would be exactly the same as far as acceleration goes. I'm going to do that at the next light. That'll at least save you from doing that first to second shift and wasting the time. That's really about it. Now, wind protection on this actually isn't that great. It's pretty noisy. The wind is hitting me right about the top of my helmet. Like I said, I'm 6'2", and it's a completely sit-up and beg position. My back is perfectly straight. Bars are very rearward swept. I've got a huge bend in my elbows. Zero pressure on any part of my body. I forgot this has that stupid gear selector where it only tells you what gear you're in when the clutch is out. I thought I was in neutral there for a second. We're in second. I wanted to go to a stop, but believe me, starting from second would be exactly the same as starting in first. If I had this, that's probably how I would use the bike. No joke. So yeah, not a fan of the gear selector here. Whenever you pull in the clutch lever, it just goes to show a dash, so you have no idea what gear you're in. And when the gears are spaced this low, and you're rolling through them like that, I think it's actually important to see what gear you're in at all times. That's just a function of where they put the sensor. On bikes like the FJR there, they put it on the transmission. So as you select your gears, it just moves a little cam, and it tells you what gear you're in. Well, this uses a calculation from the engine itself and the output to determine what gear you're in. I like it the other way. I'll go into second. Oh, come on. Yep, exactly the same. It didn't want to shift into there from neutral. Like I said, clunky transmission. Definitely not a fan. Could be a lot smoother, a lot more snicky and modern. If you've ridden the old school Harleys, if you've ridden the older Star bikes, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about compared to other bikes. It's just the way it is. I don't know if it's a function of just having to use this type of transmission because of extreme torque. Maybe there's something in the mechanism they have to engineer and it just makes it clunky like this. I have no idea. But I know that there are other modern bikes like this year's Goldwing that have a snick smooth transmission, and they've got boatloads of torque. If not as much as this, really close. BMW 1600s are the same way. Butter smooth. Now, unlike my review of the Venture, today is very cool. We're in the mid 60s right now. We're only going up into the 70s. I don't feel any heat on my legs. When I did the review last time, we were in the 90s. Still here in Florida, but 30 plus degrees hotter, and that was cooking. So there is definitely a line there when you start to notice the heat problem on this bike. A lot of people said, oh, I never had a problem. Well, that's because you don't live in a really hot area. And believe me, if you're riding anything like this during the summertime in Arizona, parts of California, Texas, Florida, you would have noticed. But if you're in temperatures like this, no, you wouldn't have. So I'm glad I got to test it in both conditions. Point is, if you're up north and you're not in the 90s and baking sun, there's not going to be a problem. So you're okay. So there you go, guys. There's your 2018 Star Eluder. Very cool bike for what it is. Definitely a good deal. Price really rockets up when you get into the Venture Transcontinental model, but this one stays pretty reasonable if you're just a single rider. Where are you going, dude? He wants me over here. Okay. So there you go, guys. See you next time.